Spawning here, though, in the lower right corner of the map. From Mouse Sports, the red Terran player, HeroMarine. Hiccup. His opponent in the upper left. The really aggressive Roach Hydra build, able to bring it back, tied now 1-1. It's going to be Alliance's SortOF. So King Sejong Station is an absurdly large map. It doesn't look that big from cross spawns, but you don't go cross map. You gotta bleed around, go through the sides, wind through all these pathways down the middle of the map, come up here, then wrap around once again. So it's a very long distance from base to base, and it's not the easiest thing to flood Zerglings, flood Banelings, but on top of this, creep spread is going to be a bit difficult too, because you got to go all the way around the map as well. And of course, there's this sort of back door to worry about. For those who don't know, Polar Knight had something similar to this. You never really saw it got utilized. In fact, I think in the entirety of casting Polar Knight through its entire tournament run, I think TLO, I didn't even cast it. TLO versus Lucifron and DreamHack was cast by my partner Zombie Grub. That's the only time I ever saw those back rocks utilized, but here they're a little bit more exposed. They're a little bit more in the open and a little bit easier to deal with. So if you find a Terran player who's bunkered up, you know, 3 bunkers here, 2 bunkers here, a wall off, another wall off, or something like insane on this side, just break down the back rocks, go in from behind. But, you know, that's one of those things that, again, easier said than done, and it's nice to fantasize about, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. We got these windy paths around the side of the map, too, I want to showcase real quick. These could also be great for sneak attacks. There are rocks you got to tear through, though. I think if SortOF finds himself kind of unable to do much with Lings, chipping rocks instead of sitting around doing nothing could be good. Either way, this is a map kind of that reminds me somewhat of Ultrazine, where you're just kind of... You're asking for the macro game, just looking at the map. It's so gosh darn big. But as far as what each of these guys do, sort of, again, just playing it safe. He's not going for cheese. He's not mad. He's not trying to punish HeroMarine. The same goes for HeroMarine. Now, there is a cool Reaper spot on this map. We don't have him going for a Reaper, but I want to show it off because it's kind of like a public service announcement. It's really obvious over here. Like on Yansu, there's a little cliff you can hop up with the Reaper to get to the main. But over here on the bottom right, it's not so obvious, and it looks like part of the terrain, honestly. And I didn't realize this until Zombie Grab had pointed out to me as well, but you can hop up and down this cliff at the same time. People, I don't genuinely hate this map, guys. I'm just shocked because a lot of the times, patterns you see through vetoes, through casting various tournaments, aren't because players hate maps. It's because other maps are better. So, for example, you would have to imagine, like, okay, maybe you would think people like Overgrowth better than a massive map like this. Overgrowth, of course, is a little bit more restrictive and has equally weird bases to take. That's the nice thing, though. Casting a lot of tournaments, you know, you see the common maps, Frost and Habitation Station, almost always unvetoed 100% of the time, with that sort of third map being a wild card to whoever everyone hates least. But both of these players vetoed everything else except this one, of course. Now bringing us to the ace match. This is kind of a cute use of the barracks. It is actually going to pick that off. Okay, or try to pick that off. That's kind of cool. I don't think he could have. There's too much dead space back there, but looks like with the Marines running around the side, he's actually going to dedicate to it. No, he gets the Overlord.
First blood.
I was not expecting him to actually get that. I thought I was going to fly away to safety. But okay, whatever works. They actually supply a box, sort of a little bit, which is strange to consider this early on. You don't usually lose Overlords like that. And that was kind of the safe spot. I don't know anyone that's ever really gone out of their way to float the barracks specifically to do that, but he brings it back in time to start building the reactor. His natural base is established, and we have more Overlords spread around the map. Some Watchtower control here out of SortOF as well. Oh man, there's so many cool players in the brackets. My one regret is that I'm one person and I can't cast them all. There's so many other good matches going on right now. Again, you guys can type !brackets if you want to be brought to the ESL website where they have a link to all the games currently going on. I do want to remind everybody, top 4 players from today qualify. So you don't have to actually play the semifinals, you just have to get there is the thing. So currently, Golden, First, and Gung Fu Banda are all players waiting for their opponents to go to a qualifying match. On the very bottom side, it's a little bit behind, but you know what would be so cool? I mean, Stefano versus Damaga is going at it right now. Demuslim versus Soul is currently going at it, but Demuslim versus Stefano, what the hell? That could possibly happen, guys. I'm not saying it's likely or necessarily will or, you know, this or that, because I have no idea on odds for those other games, but that is something that is possibly going to happen. But, alright. Overlord can be driven from the main. HeroMarine hasn't got anything too sneaky. I think the Overlord saw the reactor. I didn't get a check. Hang on. Did he see the reactor? No, he didn't see the reactor humming away, so he doesn't necessarily know that this is going to be cloaked, but he does know there's going to be a Banshee on seeing that. Nobody really fakes out a tech lab. I guess you technically could to swap it off, but he had already seen the starport building things, so... Banshee will be coming out here in a moment's time. One key thing that I really like out of HeroMarine's playstyle through all these games thus far is he's really good at cleaning up creep. He doesn't seem to be the best at stopping it from coming down, but he cleans it up very effectively, and Frost is a perfect example of that, but... Fully walled off here. You know, there's a really cool wall off we saw, I want to say Mana? No, I can't remember who. There's a Protoss player from yesterday's qualifiers who did it. They actually did it from here to here and used the one grid space behind the geyser as the hold position for the Zealots. It's kind of interesting to see the different types of wall off players they're trying to implement here. We see HeroMarine also doing this one here. I've seen a wall off go from here to here as well. It's so crazy and so weird, and that's the nice thing about these maps that hold the phone guys. We're not going to have bio at a HeroMarine on this map. He's going to be changing up and going mech. You rarely see HeroMarine go mech in tournaments. He does it on his stream all the time. But mech is not usually something you see him play in tournaments. So this is maybe going to catch sort of off guard. I wonder. I mean, if he's going Roach Hydra, he might be able to deal with this. But if he blindly keeps investing in this, I mean, even 1-1 upgrades isn't a waste by any means. But if he's blindly going to go for Ling Bane Muta, he's going to be sorely disappointed when Thors and Hellbats are there to meet him. And this poke too, I mean, it looks like an over-dedication to Hellions. 8 is a lot, but this alone isn't exactly, hey, look at me, I'm going mech. So all the factories being swapped over. We'll probably have a couple tanks come out first, and then I imagine Thors to follow shortly after. It's always good to have a tank or two for safety, but he may just go straight to Thors. We've seen some players doing this as well. Yeah, he's going to go straight to Thors. Thors and Hellbats right away. This is a more, I think, popularized style of mech in Korea, I'd like to describe it as, where you go for this more aggressive style. If you go for tanks, you can play it like Goody, you can play it like Avila, you can play it like the mech captains of industry who like to play that super turtle style. But if you go aggressive like this, part of the idea is your opponent's going to have the wrong units to meet you with. Banelings and Zerglings are not how you're going to deal with this force. But on top of that, the idea is you get there before Swarm Hosts are out of control, or even if Swarm Hosts are already down, you get there when there's only like 3 or 4. The Thors can make mincemeat out of Swarm Hosts so quickly, and the Hellbats and Hellions, I almost call them Firebats, actually deal with Locust Waves pretty decently when there's low counts of them. This Overlord is going to be chased off, or Overseer rather, and sort of now fully aware. If you didn't confirm it through the buildings alone, that attack command should have notified him that, hey, guess what? Mech is what's out in play. Now, granted, we're used to seeing Roach, we're used to seeing Hydra, we're used to seeing Swarm Hosts come as a way to deal with this, but Mutalisks are something that do work en masse. Thors kind of look like they're the anti-Mutalisk unit, and they can be in some situations, hell, in most situations. But if you Magic Box the Mutalisks and do not clump them above the Thors, you can cause a lot of damage. You can pick off Thors pretty quickly. Vikings, God, do you guys remember once upon a time when Vikings were just a joke? Anyone who made Vikings versus Mutalisks was a total noob and had no idea what they were doing. But now with the combined weapon and armor upgrades, they'll be on 3-3, and they'll actually be able to contend with the Mutalisks pretty decently. And if there is going to be the Broodlord Corruptor swap that sometimes does come with these mech plays, they'll be prepared for that as well. But 2 Vikings, you have to be a little bit careful. They're nice and they can kite, but there's not a lot to fall back to. Thor is going to get a couple of shots off. Almost gets another Mutalisk if he could have got that one more volley in, but... yeah, this is such a low count that it's not going to do much for now. We do see sort of continuing to invest in Mutalisks, though. It looks like he will be going Roach Muta. It's not bad at all, don't get me wrong. But this low count is susceptible to this push, and this is what I was describing earlier. When you play this style of mech, you're not trying to turtle up. You're trying to get across the map and deal some damage before anything gets out of control. This base, by the way, we haven't been paying attention. This is sort of taking 4 or 5 bases while this is going on, too. Queen's still in the front lines, or Banshee's still in the front lines, going to add a ton of damage to anything on the ground, whether it's Roaches, Hydras, Banelings, as long as there's no Overseers nearby to detect them. And there's not currently. Thor's still hammering away at these Mutalisks. It's very important he pays attention to these, though. The second these Mutalisks get out of hand is when the game kind of goes in the favor of a Zerg player. But like I said, sort of kind of with the wrong unit composition to start this. I don't know if he's got enough now. He's got a lot of Banelings, and Enduring Locust has been started, but I don't think Swarm Host at this point is what you want. You just want so many Roaches that you can bust through this. If the Banelings can connect to the Hellbats, that's a different story, but the Thors acting like buildings going to block these out. SCVs were brought to the front lines to try and repair these Thors. A couple of them did go down, but it looks like this attack is going to be stifled. Mutalisks will be taken care of, though, I think, as well, actually, there might be 1 or 2 left standing afterwards. Banshee, go do what damage you can. You're on a clock. But this is kind of the problem. This mech push did not end the game. This mech push didn't kill well, it did kill this base, I suppose, but with the Swarm Host coming out, if HeroMarine invests in too many Thors and not enough tanks, he won't actually be able to keep back the relentless Locust waves. I mean, a big part of this push, again, like, you can push into low amounts of Swarm Hosts and decent amount of Locusts with Hellbats. Hellbats will soak the hits and Thors will do the damage, and Hellbats, well, they'll actually spray a lot versus Locusts. The problem is, though, it's not going to be just Swarm Hosts coming his way. There's Mutalisks, there's Roaches, there's Zerglings even still involved with this. And there's no Siege Tanks for splash damage, no Siege Tanks for long-range artillery fire. Blue Flame's coming out, and that's going to be a little bit effective versus the Locust, I suppose, but I don't know. HeroMarine kind of played his really heavy card and didn't get much for it. It's the surprise element. The timing of that push is so hard to deal with, but that's a lot of Vikings, that's a lot of Thors. These Mutalisks are going to be very hard pressed to do really anything. Actually, kind of funny enough, with Lings, Roaches, and Swarm Hosts, there's not a lot of anti-air. If he cleans up the Mutalisks, making Banshees after this could actually be incredibly effective. But this is what I was talking about before, guys. If you're hankered in, he's got depots here, he's got a wall here, the army's on this side of the map, you can just tear down the back rocks. Now, he's not going to be able to push in an auto-win, but after he takes out these rocks, this opens a pathway for later on. Mech army positioned outside the 5th, all of a sudden an army runs in from the north. This can be really, really rough to deal with later on. But Mutalisks are kind of agonizingly harassing this refinery, trying to tear it down. Does lose one of them. But decides to push this back. Meanwhile, SortOF is getting out of hand. This is kind of how this sounds so silly, guys, because you're not really doing damage by dealing this, or dealing damage by doing this. Oh, sorry, my brain is so dead at this point. He's taking all the bases. Now, this looks like a little bit stupid, but there's twofold reasons for this. One is the fact that he knows he's going to lose something. When HeroMarine pushes, it's going to be so hard, and it will be held off eventually, but not before it deals damage to one of the hatcheries. So why not have another base you're already ready to defend at? Two, it denies any chance for SortOF to take bases. If you can drop creep, if you can build a hatchery, I mean, that's exactly what he's doing. He wants to make sure HeroMarine is stuck on 3 bases. A mech player on 3 bases can live to the 20-minute mark. Beyond that, if you can't get a 4th, you're probably going to be in for a bad time. But Hellbat's looking to push forward into these Locust waves. Looks like a lot of the Mutalisks have been cleaned up thanks to those Vikings. In fact, how many are left available? None. Looks like all the Mutalisks are cleaned up, actually. So, counterattack goes off. The depots are down. A little unfortunate in that regard. HeroMarine is going to pull back to deal with this. A couple more Mutalisks coming out right now for the time being, but I don't know. For SortOF, he's got all these bases, but he doesn't have the economy to remax the Mutalisks. And Mutalisks, unless they're in massive amounts of like 30, are no good versus mech. We've seen how well Vikings deal with them. We've seen how well the Thors deal with them. It's just not a pretty sight. Scumbag Hellbats, go save the SCVs! Dudes! Terran problems. We do have Hellbat hit squads running out right now, which is kind of cute to see. Normally I'd love to see transformation servos, and what you end up doing is running Hellions into like a mineral line and transforming them, but not opting to go for that, realizing that he doesn't want to spend the money on that upgrade. Just decides to go for the hatchery. And Hellbats, people forget, they hit so hard. They're like roaches with splash but melee range. 22 damage in an AoE is a lot to deal with. This was meant to be a planetary fortress, but unfortunately will be denied thanks to that creep spread. Locust waves are starting to get scary. We got battle cruisers coming up. Whoa! Oftentimes you'll see Ravens be the counter. Battle cruisers, of course, often not utilized because of how easily countered they are by combination massive Mutalisks as well as Corruptors, but I'm just hoping that his Thors are enough anti-air to cover it. I don't know. Battle cruisers are not exactly the end-all be-all unit they used to be. Do you guys remember, like, if anyone played the campaign, how cool battle cruisers looked when they attacked? What happened to that? What part of development said, hey, you know what? Let's make the battle cruiser attack really slow and horribly for the multiplayer online mode. But the BC is kind of a cool move. It is an air behemoth. It will soak hits, that's for sure. And the damage dealing capabilities of up and down are rare in this game. So he'll be able to attack both at the same time. We do finally have siege tanks out, by the way. I'm glad HeroMarine recognizes he eventually needs to get these. Again, you don't have to play a super defensive stance against this. But what SortOF is doing right now is critical, guys. It's not even about killing the command center. It's not even about killing turrets or SCVs. It's taking down those geysers. To a mech player, gas is everything. Gas is your life. You don't care about minerals. You end up sacrificing half your Hellions for free damage anyways because you're floating a ton later on. Unfortunately, though, no real way to deal with these locusts. Is still going to take hits on these units. He could try to repair this up, but the swarm hoster is being relocated in the process. Probably going to try and come in through the back of the main entrance of the natural. A couple Thors aren't going to fight off this many locust waves, sadly. And you know what? I don't think SortOF knows about the battlecruiser change. No, he's not seen the fusion core. He doesn't know that's available.
Depleted.
Where are the battlecruisers rallied? Here in the middle-ish of the map. Curiously enough, we actually don't have Yamato Cannon being invested in yet. This is fine because right now he doesn't have anything he necessarily needs to use the Yamato Cannon on. Just the DPS from the battlecruiser and the faster attack is what he's looking for. Yamato Cannon is really good at taking out corruptors, trying to push into crazy waves of like spore crawlers and such, but he does have to be careful. Again, like their DPS is fast, but not that fast. The locust waves won't take care of themselves. Mutalisks are actually being taken out by the Thors. They are magic boxing, but the Thors have just got a little bit too much damage. And because the Mutalisks were sacrificed on the other side of the map, there's nothing to defend this base of SortOF. Tanks, Hellbats, and Thors are going to push in. The locusts are across the wrong side of the map, and SortOF for a moment tried to hesitate and go home with them, realizing he's already too far gone. Sends this wave forward, says, alright, you guys do as much damage as you can. For HeroMarine, he doesn't have a plan to come back from this. Like, the goal isn't to recover this army. It's meant to dedicate it and do as much damage as humanly possible in the process. Oh, hey, while this is going on, Bombjin gave a bit of a sub. Thanks very much, Bombjin. But the, you know, the Vikings have been taken out. The Thors are dealing with the Mutalisks the best they can. However, there's still the battlecruiser follow-up to this, which is really scary. We do see 30 more Mutalisks. Oh my god, that remax of Mutalisks. 30 more Mutalisks coming out behind this. The anti-air for HeroMarine has dissipated at this point, and those battlecruisers still sitting across the map are really not contributing to this at all. Trying to take this base, but as pointed before, SortOF just needs to take all the bases on the map. Keep HeroMarine from being able to expand, keep him from getting a lot more done. Now, the nice thing about Vikings is while they don't do a ton of damage to the Mutalisks, they can kite them. They've got that range benefit, as well as, well, they gotta be careful though, they don't get too overzealous. They're picking off what they can here. A couple Thors are gonna force an engagement. These first round of Mutalisks get popped off so quick, but the rest of them have no answer. And HeroMarine is out of gas. Losing these tanks means he's got no way to really deal with these swarm hosts, which have been split up at this point. Some to go home and some to stay offensive. Tanks are on the clock. These Mutalisks will clean everything up here. He's going to try and take down the hive, but I don't think that's going to happen. Meanwhile, back at home, battlecruisers are on the move. Even if he kills the hatchery, he's going to have to wait forever for the creep to recede. And behind this, more locusts coming in. This is not looking good for HeroMarine. Tied up 1-1, guys. This is their tournament life on the line. One player will be knocked out of the qualifiers after this match, and right now it's not looking so good for HeroMarine. His army supply isn't that big, and he's got a lot of battlecruisers. At this point, you're kind of like, where are the Ravens? Where are the Seeker missiles? Where are the point defense drones? And the locusts just pushing forward here, or quite frankly, not going to be answered anytime soon. He couldn't establish another base. His hatchery still stands. If HeroMarine had a fourth, this mech's playstyle of going massive air would absolutely work. But he doesn't have the gas count to support this. He doesn't have the mineral count to support this. Now that the Corruptors are coming out, we still do not have Yamato Cannon available. So without Viking support and without Yamato Cannon, he's got no way to engage those Corruptors, which deal bonus damage versus massive. Guess what, guys? Battlecruisers are massive. Suit your mom. GG's called. SortOF, ladies and gentlemen, will advance to a qualifying match where he will fight against firsts.